My name is Diane Mercer. I'm 52 years old. At 2:18 on a Thursday afternoon in the conference room of Willow Creek Care Home, my sister folded her hands on the table, lowered her voice into the soft, wounded tone she used whenever she wanted witnesses, and said, "I just don't know how much longer I can carry Mom alone." Carry Mom alone. I was sitting across from her with a paper cup of untouched coffee in front of me and a folder of invoices on my lap. My mother, Helen Mercer, was 81 years old and in the memory care wing 2 doors down, wearing a lavender cardigan I had bought her the week before, because she said the old one felt like clouds that had given up. She had vascular dementia, arthritis in both knees, and a habit of calling every nurse sweetheart except the one named Paula, whom she insisted was too young to be trusted with soup. For 4 years I had managed her care, not loudly, not online, not with filtered photos or captions about sacrifice. I had managed it the way most real care happens. In receipts, phone calls, pharmacy renewals, insurance appeals, laundry bags, care conferences, medication adjustments, awkward conversations with doctors, and quiet Sunday visits where my mother sometimes knew me, sometimes did not, and sometimes asked if I had seen her little girls. I was one of those little girls. So was my sister, Patricia, who sat beside me now wearing a cream blazer, pearl earrings, and the expression of a woman being wronged in public. The family meeting had been called because Patricia requested it. Not Willow Creek, not me, Patricia. She had emailed the care home director, my mother's primary nurse, our cousin Elaine, our Aunt Marjorie, my brother-in-law, her pastor, and me, saying she was, quote, concerned about the imbalance of family involvement in Helen's care. Imbalance, that was her word. I had read it twice at my kitchen table and laughed so hard I scared my cat. Then I forwarded it to the care home director, Mrs. Angela Price, with one sentence. Please include the visitor logs and billing history. Mrs. Price replied, already prepared. That was when I knew the meeting would not go the way Patricia expected. But Patricia did not know that. She had spent 3 years posting online about being, quote, the daughter who stayed. Pictures of herself holding Mom's hand. Captions about elder care. Prayer requests. Long updates about caregiver exhaustion. She wrote things like, some burdens are carried quietly, and honoring my mother one hard day at a time, and if you still have your mom, call her. People commented, you are such a devoted daughter. Your sister should help more. God sees your sacrifice. You're carrying so much. Patricia liked every comment. She never corrected a single one. Meanwhile, I paid the private care balance when Mom's insurance did not cover the memory wing upgrade. I handled the pharmacy plan after the deductible changed. I drove 40 minutes every Wednesday evening with clean nightgowns, peppermint lotion, and sugar-free lemon drops. I sat with Mom during 3 urinary tract infections, 2 falls, 1 hospital transfer, and the afternoon she cried because she could not remember how to sign her own name. But I did not post. So in Patricia's version of the story, I had abandoned Mom. The family believed more of it than I wanted to admit. Aunt Marjorie had called me once and said, Patricia is exhausted, Diane. Maybe you could try to be more present. I had been sitting in the Willow Creek parking lot at the time, eating a granola bar for dinner, after spending 2 hours with Mom and 30 minutes arguing with the pharmacy about a denied medication. I said I'll keep that in mind. Because I was tired. Because defending real work to people who prefer performance is another kind of labor. Now Patricia leaned forward in the conference room, voice trembling. I'm not trying to attack Diane, she said, attacking me. I know everyone handles grief differently. But Mom deserves consistency. She deserves to know her daughters are there. Mrs. Price sat at the head of the table with a laptop closed in front of her, her reading glasses beside a stack of printed papers. She was 62, composed, and had the calm authority of a woman who had run memory care long enough to know family myths usually fall apart under sign-in sheets. My cousin Elaine sat beside Aunt Marjorie, looking uncomfortable. My brother-in-law, Patricia's husband, Ron, checked his phone under the table. Patricia's pastor, Reverend Paul, nodded sympathetically. I looked at my sister, then at Mrs. Price, then down at the folder on my lap. I did not open it yet. Patricia sighed. I'm sorry, Diane. I know this is hard to hear, but you need to understand how it feels to be the only daughter showing up. The only daughter showing up. That sentence floated over the table. Mrs. Price placed both hands flat on her folder. Before we continue, she said, I think it would be helpful to review the facility records. Patricia smiled softly, as if records could only confirm the story she had already sold. I agree, she said. Good. What Patricia did not know was that Willow Creek required every visitor to sign in and out at the front desk. What she did not know was that the memory care hall cameras covered the entrance, the activity lounge, the family sitting room, the courtyard door, and the hallway outside Mom's room. What she did not know was that care home billing records showed exactly who paid, when, and how much. What she did not know was that Mrs. Price had already pulled 3 years of visitor logs and selected security footage from the days Patricia claimed online to be spending the afternoon with Mom. And what my sister absolutely did not know was that the only reason I had stayed silent for so long was not because I lacked proof. It was because I thought my mother deserved dignity more than Patricia deserved exposure. But Patricia had called a family meeting to accuse me of abandonment. So I let the care home press play. This is that story. Before I tell you how my sister learned that online devotion disappears quickly under visitor logs and security footage, tell me where you are watching or listening from, and what time it is there. I always wonder who hears stories like this while remembering the moment someone performed sacrifice while you were quietly doing the work. And if you connect with stories about women who were erased, underestimated, blamed, and quietly took their power back, like and subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. Some women do not fight in the comment section. Some women let the cameras speak. I grew up in Springfield, Missouri, in a pale yellow house with a screened porch, a cracked bird bath, and a mother who believed appearances were not everything but admitted they did open doors. My mother, Helen Mercer, was a church secretary for 36 years. She had neat handwriting, a firm telephone voice, and the ability to remember everyone's casserole preferences, prayer requests, and grandchildren's birthdays. She was not wealthy. She was not flashy. But she had presence. People trusted her with keys, checks, secrets, and recipes. My father, Robert, worked for the county road department until lung disease forced early retirement. He died when I was 34. After that, Mom shrank for about a year, then rebuilt herself around church, gardening, crossword puzzles, and a rotating cast of women who came to her kitchen table to complain about husbands, daughters, knees, and God's timing. There were 2 daughters. Patricia first, 3 years older, pretty expressive, always slightly wounded, and talented at making care about the caregiver. Even as a child, she knew how to perform feeling. If she gave Mom a handmade card, she watched Mom's face the whole time, making sure the gratitude landed properly. If she helped clear dishes, she announced it. If she cried, the room reorganized around her. Then me, Diane, quiet, observant, practical, the daughter who noticed when Mom's ankle swelled, when Dad's breathing worsened, when bills were left unopened, when Patricia had taken credit for something someone else did. I did not perform well. I never knew how to cry attractively or speak in captions. I did things. I drove, called, checked, paid, signed, fixed, remembered. In our family, Patricia was called sensitive. I was called capable. Those words sound harmless until you see how people use them. Sensitive meant Patricia's feelings had to be protected. Capable meant mine could be postponed. The symbolic object in this story was Mom's rose-patterned visitor notebook. She started it after Dad died, when she realized she could not always remember who had stopped by. It was a small, hardcover notebook with pink roses on the front and a ribbon marker. At first, she used it for church visitors. Marjorie brought banana bread. Elaine stopped by after choir. Diane fixed porch light. Patricia called, said she will come Sunday. That notebook became strangely important as Mom's memory changed. By the time she moved into Willow Creek, she could no longer reliably write in it, but I kept it in her nightstand. After every visit, I wrote the date, who came, what we did, what she ate, whether she seemed tired, confused, happy, or upset. I did it because doctors asked about patterns. Because nurses appreciated details. Because Mom liked when I read entries back to her. Because documentation is not cold when it protects someone vulnerable. Patricia called it obsessive. Of course she did. Patricia and I had not always been enemies. That would be too simple. There were years when we were close, in the way sisters can be when they share a childhood nobody else quite understands. We made forts under the dining room table. We spied on Mom's Bible study from the hallway. We shared lip gloss in high school and lied for each other badly. When Patricia's first fiancé left her for a woman from his office, I slept on her couch for a week and brought groceries. When I had emergency gallbladder surgery at 39, Patricia sent flowers but did not visit because hospitals made her emotionally dizzy. That was Patricia, generous at a distance, unavailable up close. The trouble with Mom began slowly. First, misplaced keys, then unpaid bills, then repeated stories, then phone calls, asking what day it was. Then Mom driving to the grocery store and forgetting where she parked, then driving again after we asked her not to, and ending up 2 towns over because she was following the sun, which sounded poetic until the police called. The diagnosis came after a neurological workup. Vascular dementia, early stage but progressing. Mom sat in the doctor's office with her hands folded in her lap and said, "Well, that is inconvenient." That was my mother. Patricia cried so loudly the neurologist stopped explaining and asked if she needed water. I held Mom's hand and asked questions. Medication? Progression? Safety? Driving? Legal documents? Home care? Financial management? The doctor answered me. Patricia later told Aunt Marjorie I had been very clinical. Clinical, that word again. People love calling women clinical when we are the only ones making sure the paperwork gets signed before disaster arrives. For the first year, Mom stayed in her house. I helped set up automatic payments, medication organizers, grocery delivery, and a daytime companion twice a week. Patricia offered to, quote, take the emotional side, which apparently meant posting nostalgic photos and calling Mom during work hours, then becoming upset when Mom repeated herself. I handled durable power of attorney with Mom while she still had capacity. We set up medical authorization, care preferences, and financial oversight. Patricia was furious that Mom named me primary. "I'm the oldest," she said. Mom looked at her gently. "Yes, honey. That should matter." "It does. It is just not the same as being organized." Patricia cried in the parking lot afterward. I did not comfort her. That was one of the first times I chose accuracy over family habit. When Mom's condition worsened, home became unsafe. She left the stove on twice. She fell in the bathroom. She accused the mailman of stealing her blue sweater, which I later found in the freezer. She began wandering at night. The final incident happened in January, when a neighbor found her outside at 3 a.m, wearing slippers and a coat over her nightgown, looking for the church office because she believed she was late for work. We toured facilities. Patricia hated everyone, not because she had better alternatives, because she wanted to be seen hating them. "No place feels like home," she said at Willow Creek. Mrs. Price answered, "No place is home. We try to make it safe." I appreciated that. Patricia did not. Willow Creek was clean, warm, and expensive. Memory care cost more than Mom's pension, Social Security, and long-term care policy covered. There would be a monthly shortfall. Patricia said we would figure it out as sisters. I asked, "How much can you contribute?" She looked offended. "Diane, this is not the time to make it transactional." It is exactly the time. She turned to Mom, who was sitting in the lobby, smiling at a therapy dog. "I just want what's best for Mom." "So do I. What can you contribute?" Patricia said she had expenses. Ron's consulting income was unpredictable. Their house needed repairs. Their daughter was in college. She could not commit monthly but would help as needed. As needed became never. I paid the shortfall. At first, $1, $150 a month, then $1, $430 after the care level increased. Then occasional extra charges, podiatry, medication changes, haircuts, dental, clothing, personal supplies, transportation not covered by insurance. I could afford it, barely, because I had no children, a steady job as a medical office administrator, and a small savings account I had intended to use for a kitchen renovation. My kitchen remained ugly. Mom had care. That was the trade. I did not tell the family the amounts at first. Not because I was noble, because I was embarrassed. There is a particular loneliness in paying for a parent's care while everyone else praises the person posting photos. Patricia's online performance grew after Mom moved into Willow Creek. At first, it seemed harmless. A photo of Mom's hands with the caption, "These hands held me first." A selfie in the courtyard, visiting my sweet mama, treasure every moment. A post on Mother's Day, "Dementia is a thief, but love remains." People responded warmly. I understood. Social media is where grief goes when it wants witnesses. But then the captions changed. Caregiving is not for the weak. Some days I feel like the only one carrying this. I will never abandon my mother. Devoted daughter duty today. Under one post, someone wrote, "You're such a good daughter. Shame on anyone who leaves this all to you." Patricia replied with a sad heart emoji. Not a correction. A sad heart. That was the moment I saved the screenshot. I did not know why yet. But my hand moved before my brain did. Proof of the lie. By then, my visits had become routine. Every Wednesday after work. Every Sunday afternoon. Sometimes Saturdays if there was a care conference, a supply need, or Mom had been having a hard week. I signed in every time. The front desk staff knew me. "Hi, Diane. Your mom had a good morning. She's in the activity room. She asked for lemon drops. She thinks today is Tuesday." I brought her clean clothes and took home laundry because Mom hated the industrial smell of facility detergent. I bought peppermint lotion because she liked the scent. I learned which songs calmed her when she was agitated. I sat through bad days when she accused me of being a stranger stealing her purse. I sat through good days when she called me Diane and asked if I was eating enough. Sometimes Patricia visited, usually after church, in makeup and a nice blouse, for 20 or 30 minutes. She took photos when Mom was alert. If Mom was sleepy, Patricia left quickly because it was too painful. If Mom was confused, Patricia cried in the hallway and asked nurses whether this was normal. If Mom needed help eating, Patricia looked away. Then she posted, "Long day with Mom. Dementia caregiving is heartbreaking. Long day. 23 minutes. The care home cameras knew. The sign-in sheet knew. I knew. I stayed silent. The first time Patricia publicly accused me, it was in a Facebook comment. Someone asked, "Does Diane help too?" Patricia replied, "Diane has her own way of coping. I try not to judge." I stared at that sentence in my apartment at 11 at night, with Mom's laundry folded beside me and a Willow Creek invoice open on my laptop. I try not to judge. The woman who had paid nothing and visited 14 times in a year was publicly extending grace to the daughter doing everything. I called her. She did not answer. I texted. "Take that comment down," she replied the next morning. I didn't say anything untrue. I wrote, "You implied I don't help Mom?" She replied, "If that bothers you, maybe ask yourself why." I almost told her everything then. The payments, the visits, the logs, the screenshots. But Mom had a bad infection that week, and I had no energy to fight Patricia's reflection pool of self-pity. So I sent nothing. I paid the invoice. I went to Willow Creek. I sat beside Mom while she slept, and I wrote in the Rose notebook. March 4th. Diane visited 6:10 to 8:30. Mom tired. Held my hand. Ate pudding. Patricia post upsetting. Do not discuss with Mom. The care home staff noticed. Of course they did. Nurses notice more than families imagine. One evening, Paula, the nurse Mom allegedly did not trust with soup, found me in the family sitting room, wiping Mom's chin after dinner. "Your sister was here earlier," Paula said carefully. "Yes?" "She took photos in the courtyard." "I know." She told Mrs. Price she wanted to be notified about all care changes because she is the primary family support. I looked up. Paula's face was neutral, professional, but her eyes were not. "What did Mrs. Price say?" "She said the chart lists you as primary." I laughed softly. Mom looked at me. What's funny? Nothing, Mom. Paula squeezed my shoulder once as she passed. That small squeeze meant more than most family words. Mrs. Price called me into her office 2 weeks later. She closed the door. I want to discuss family communication, she said. I sat down, suddenly tired. What did Patricia do? Mrs. Price smiled slightly. You said that, not me. She asked to be primary? She requested access to billing records and care decisions. We explained that your mother's legal documents name you. I rubbed my forehead. She'll say I'm controlling. She already has. Wonderful. Mrs. Price leaned forward. Diane, we maintain detailed records, visitor logs, care conference attendance, payment records, authorized contact notes. If you ever need documentation, ask. I looked at her. Why would I need it? Her expression softened. Because in long-term care, the person doing the most is often accused by the person performing the most. That sentence sat with me for months. Doing the most, performing the most. There it was. The family meeting happened after Patricia made one post too many. It was September. Mom had declined noticeably over the summer. More confusion, less appetite. More help needed with dressing. Her care level increased again, and the monthly shortfall rose to $1,820. I cried in my car after receiving the new invoice because I did not know how much longer I could carry it alone. Not emotionally. Financially. I emailed Patricia. Mom's care level increased. Monthly shortfall is now $1,820. I have been paying the shortfall since admission. I need you to contribute $900 monthly, or meet to discuss alternatives, she replied 2 days later. I had no idea you were paying that much. We should talk as a family. I don't think it's fair for you to make unilateral decisions and then demand money. Unilateral. I sent her the admission paperwork she had refused to attend because she had a migraine. No response. Then came her public post. Today was one of the hardest days of my life. Watching Mom fade while feeling like some family members only show up when decisions are already made is a grief I can't explain. Please pray for strength. I'm tired of carrying this alone. Attached was a photo of her holding Mom's hand, taken that day, during a 19-minute visit. I knew because Willow Creek had called me earlier to say Mom was agitated after Patricia left crying. Under the post, Aunt Marjorie commented, Diane should be ashamed. Patricia replied, Please don't blame her. Everyone has to live with their choices. That was it. I emailed Mrs. Price. Patricia is publicly claiming I have abandoned Mom and privately refusing to contribute to care. She wants a family meeting. Can we schedule one with records present? Mrs. Price replied in 8 minutes, yes. And that is how we ended up in the conference room at Willow Creek, with Patricia in pearls, Aunt Marjorie primed for judgment, Reverend Paul ready to mediate, and me sitting quietly with a folder of invoices, while my sister said she was the only daughter showing up. Mrs. Price opened her laptop. I'd like to begin with objective records, she said. Patricia nodded. Of course. Mrs. Price turned the screen toward the wall monitor. The first document appeared. Visitor Summary, Helen Mercer. Period. January 1st through September 30th. Diane Mercer, 87 visits. Average duration, 1 hour, 48 minutes. Patricia Lane, 12 visits. Average duration, 26 minutes. Aunt Marjorie leaned forward. What is this? Mrs. Price said, front desk sign-in and sign-out records. Patricia's face changed, just slightly. I don't always sign out, she said. Mrs. Price clicked to the next page. Our system records badge exit as well. These are time-stamped. Reverend Paul shifted in his chair. Ron stopped looking at his phone. Patricia laughed weakly. Well, Diane lives closer. I looked at her. I live 40 minutes away. You live 22. Silence. Mrs. Price continued. Care conferences attended. Diane Mercer, 9. Patricia Lane, 1 by phone for 12 minutes. Patricia said, I had conflicts. Mrs. Price nodded. Payment records. Monthly care shortfall paid by Diane Mercer from February 4 years ago through current month. Total family paid shortfall and supplemental expenses, $76,412. Aunt Marjorie made a sound. Patricia's head turned toward me sharply. You never told us that number. I opened my folder and placed copies of emails on the table. I sent you the invoices quarterly. She looked away. Mrs. Price said, there's also the matter of public claims made regarding caregiving. Patricia's eyes narrowed. I don't think my private social media is relevant. I almost smiled. Private social media with 400 friends, church members, relatives, and captions about my abandonment. Mrs. Price looked at me. I nodded once. She clicked again. Screenshots appeared. Patricia's posts. Her comments. Diane has her own way of coping. I try not to judge. I will never abandon my mother. Some family members only show up when decisions are already made. I am tired of carrying this alone. Patricia's face flushed. This is inappropriate. Mrs. Price's voice stayed calm. What is inappropriate is using a resident's care circumstances to create a false public narrative while pressuring staff to alter access authority. Patricia looked stunned. Aunt Marjorie whispered, Patricia? Mrs. Price clicked again. This is security footage from August 15th, the date of the post stating you had spent a hard day caring for your mother. The screen showed the memory care entrance. Timestamp. 1:12 p.m. Patricia entered, wearing the same blue blouse from the photo. She hugged Mom in the courtyard at 1:18. Took several photos at 1:21. Sat beside Mom at 1:24. Looked at her phone at 1:27. Walked to the nurse station at 1:31. Left the building at 1:37. Total visit, 25 minutes. The room was silent. Mrs. Price clicked again. Same date. 6:04 p.m. I entered carrying a laundry bag and a pharmacy packet. 6:11 p.m. I sat with Mom during dinner. 6:52 p.m. I walked with her slowly down the hall. 7:18 p.m. I folded clothes in her room while she slept. 8:09 p.m. I left. Aunt Marjorie covered her mouth. Patricia whispered, You filmed us. Mrs. Price said, Security cameras monitor common areas for resident safety. We are not showing private care footage. We are showing movement records relevant to a family accusation made in this meeting. Patricia looked at Reverend Paul. He looked deeply uncomfortable now. Mrs. Price clicked one more time. September 9th. The day Patricia had posted, I am spending the afternoon with Mom and asking God for strength. Patricia entered at 2:06. Took selfie in lobby at 2:08. Entered Mom's room at 2:10. Exited at 2:19. Left building at 2:22. I entered at 5:41. Stayed until 8:03. Mrs. Price paused the video. Then she looked at Patricia. Mrs. Lane, Willow Creek does not involve itself in family disputes unless they affect resident care. Your accusations have affected staff communication, family trust, and potentially Mrs. Mercer's financial stability. The records do not support your claim that you are carrying her care alone. They support the opposite. The opposite. Those two words did what years of silence had not. They turned the room. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever been the person quietly paying, visiting, calling, carrying laundry, handling appointments, and then watched someone else post about sacrifice, you know exactly what that conference room felt like. It was not about wanting applause. It was about refusing to be called absent by someone who only came for pictures. If this story is hitting close to home, leave a comment and tell me what record finally told the truth for you. And if you have not already, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. The quiet part is over. Aunt Marjorie turned to me. Diane? She whispered. I didn't know. I looked at her. You didn't ask me. Her eyes filled. That was enough for the moment. Patricia sat rigid, lips pressed together, eyes shiny, but not yet crying. I knew she was deciding whether tears would help. She chose them. I was doing my best, she said, voice breaking. I love Mom. I never said Diane did nothing. Mrs. Price said, You said she abandoned her. Patricia looked at me. I was overwhelmed. I finally opened my folder. I pulled out the invoice summary and placed it in front of her. No, you were admired. She flinched. Good, I continued. You were admired for work you weren't doing. Every time someone praised you, you let them. Every time someone blamed me, you let them. You didn't carry Mom alone. You carried a phone into Willow Creek and left before dinner. Ron muttered, "Patricia." She snapped, "Don't." Reverend Paul cleared his throat. "I think perhaps this is a moment for humility." Patricia turned on him. "You don't understand family dynamics." He looked at the screen, still frozen on the visitor log. "I understand timestamps." That was the only thing he said that day that I respected. Mrs. Price moved the meeting forward. Mrs. Mercer's care costs must be addressed. Diane cannot be expected to continue carrying the uncovered balance indefinitely unless she chooses to. As legal representative, Diane has authority, but family contributions can be arranged. Patricia stared at the invoice summary. "I can't pay $900 a month." I said, "Then say that. Do not say you are carrying her alone." She swallowed. Aunt Marjorie said quietly, "I can contribute $200. I looked at her, surprised. "You don't have to." "I know. I should have asked sooner." Elaine said, "I can do $150. Ron finally looked up. Patricia glared at him. He said, "Patty, we can contribute something." Patty. He only called her that when he wanted to soften a blow. She looked defeated. "How much?" "We can start with $500, he said. Patricia whispered, "We can't." Ron looked at her. "We can if you cancel the lake trip." The room went very still. Lake trip. The one Patricia had posted about planning because she, quote, needed rest from caregiving. I looked at the table. If I looked at her, I might have smiled, and that would have been unkind. Accurate, but unkind. By the end of the meeting, the arrangement was written down. Patricia and Ron would contribute $500 monthly. Aunt Marjorie, $200. Elaine, $150. I would continue the remaining balance with quarterly review. All care communication would go through the authorized family portal. Patricia would stop posting identifiable photos of Mom without consent from me as power of attorney and without facility approval. She would remove misleading posts or correct them. Patricia protested that last part. Mrs. Price said, "Willow Creek's resident privacy policy is not optional." Patricia signed. So did Ron. So did I. After the meeting, Aunt Marjorie approached me in the hallway. She looked smaller than usual. "I am sorry," she said. I waited. "For believing Patricia's posts. For saying you should be ashamed. For not asking what you were doing." I nodded. "Thank you." She touched my arm. "Can I visit Helen with you sometime?" "Yes." "Will she know me?" "Maybe. Maybe not." Aunt Marjorie looked toward the memory care door. "I'd still like to come." That was the first good thing that came out of the meeting. Patricia left without speaking to me. Ron stayed behind. He looked exhausted. "I didn't know the numbers," he said. I believed him partly. "You knew she wasn't here as much as she posted." He looked ashamed. "Yes." "Then you knew enough." He nodded. "You're right." That mattered more than excuses. The online correction came the next day. Patricia posted, "I need to clarify something. I have shared about my mother's dementia journey from my emotional perspective, but I have not always represented the practical caregiving accurately. My sister Diane has been managing Mom's care, visiting consistently, and covering significant expenses. I am sorry for any implication otherwise. It was not perfect. Emotional perspective was doing a lot of work. But the truth was there. Under it, Aunt Marjorie commented, "I owe Diane an apology too. She has been there." Patricia did not like that comment. I knew because she did not click the little heart. The correction changed the family weather. People who had been cold to me began texting. Some apologies were good. Some were useless. Cousin Mark wrote, "Wow, didn't realize." "That's crazy." I did not answer. A church friend of Mom's sent, "You are such a blessing to your mother. I appreciated it and still hated that it took footage." The most important change happened at Willow Creek. Mom's care stabilized because the financial pressure eased. Not completely, but enough that I could breathe. Aunt Marjorie began visiting every other Thursday. She brought old church bulletins and read them to Mom, who occasionally corrected names with surprising accuracy. Elaine visited once a month and painted Mom's nails pale pink. Patricia visited too. Less often at first, because shame is not the same as change. Then more regularly. No photos. At least, not posted. One afternoon in December, I arrived and saw Patricia sitting beside Mom in the activity lounge. Mom was asleep in a chair, mouth slightly open, hands folded over a blanket. Patricia was not on her phone. She was just sitting there. I stopped in the doorway. Patricia looked up. For once, she looked embarrassed without turning it into theater. She fell asleep. She whispered, "That happens." I didn't know whether to leave. I walked in and sat across from her. Sometimes staying while they sleep is the visit. She looked at Mom. "I hate this." "I know. I mean, I really hate it." "I know." Her eyes filled. "I don't know how you do it." I wanted to say, "That did not stop you from taking credit for it." I did not. Not because she did not deserve it. Because Mom stirred then and opened her eyes. She looked between us. "My girls," she said. Both of us froze. Mom smiled faintly. "My girls are here." Patricia covered her mouth. I reached for Mom's hand. "Yes, Mom. We're here." That was the first time in months she had recognized us both at once. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then she asked if the church copier had been fixed. But those 30 seconds were enough to quiet both of us. After Mom fell asleep again, Patricia whispered, "I'm sorry." I looked at her. "For what specifically?" She closed her eyes. "For saying you abandoned her. For letting people think I was doing what you were doing. For taking pictures and leaving. For making Mom's illness about how good I looked loving her." That last sentence was the first honest one. I nodded. "Thank you." She cried silently. I handed her a tissue. Not because everything was forgiven. Because she needed one, and I had one. Caregiving makes you practical that way. Mom lived another 11 months. Patricia did better during those months. Not perfectly. Better. She contributed financially, though sometimes late. She visited without posting. She learned how to sit with Mom's confusion without making nurses comfort her. She attended 2 care conferences in person. She brought music Mom liked. She read from old church directories. She stopped calling herself the devoted daughter. I noticed. I did not praise too quickly. Changed behavior does not need immediate applause to be real. Aunt Marjorie became a steady visitor. Elaine helped organize a small family rotation for holidays, so I was not always the one covering every hard day. Ron surprised me by taking Mom to the courtyard once a month when the weather was decent. He pushed her wheelchair slowly and talked about baseball, which Mom did not care about but found his voice soothing. The burden did not vanish. But it was finally named correctly. Shared when possible. Seen when not. Mom declined in the spring. More sleeping. Less eating. Fewer words. Her hands, once so busy with church bulletins and grocery lists, became light and still on the blanket. I brought the Rose notebook every visit and read entries from her old life. "Mom, listen to this. May 7th, 3 years ago. You said Patricia's casserole tasted like it was seasoned with apology." Patricia laughed through tears. Mom smiled, maybe at the memory, maybe at my voice, maybe at something beyond us. I read another. "Diane fixed porch light." Mom opened one eye. "Good girl," she whispered. I cried after that in the restroom, quietly, because sometimes even a phrase from childhood can undo a grown woman. Mom died in August at 4:05 in the morning. I was there. Patricia was there too. Not because she posted about it, because I called her at 1:30 and said, "If you want to come, come now." She came in 20 minutes, hair unbrushed, no makeup, wearing mismatched shoes. That detail made me trust the moment. We sat on either side of Mom's bed. Paula checked on us. Mrs. Price came in briefly, touched Mom's foot through the blanket, and said, "She is comfortable." At 3:50, Mom's breathing changed. Patricia started to sob loudly, then stopped herself. She looked at me, and I nodded. She took Mom's left hand. I took her right. At 4:05, Mom exhaled and did not breathe again. No cameras, no post, no caption. Just 2 daughters in a dim room, finally both present. The funeral was small. Patricia asked if she could speak. I hesitated. She said, "I won't make it about me." I believed her enough to say yes. Her speech was short. She said Mom had loved church coffee, crossword puzzles, lipstick, and correcting people's grammar. She said dementia had taken many things, but not Mom's ability to make people feel seen when she was present. Then she looked at me. My sister Diane made sure Mom was cared for when I was too afraid, too proud, and too busy performing grief to understand what care required. Mom knew. The staff knew. I know now. The chapel was silent. Then she said, "If you have a family caregiver, do not just praise them, ask what they need. And if you are posting about sacrifice, make sure you are actually making one." That was the closest Patricia had ever come to public truth without decoration. After the service, Mrs. Price hugged me. She would have liked the lipstick line, she said. She would have corrected the grammar. Yes. We laughed softly. The care home sent a final statement 2 weeks later. Balance, 0. Paid, closed. I stared at the page for a long time. 4 years of invoices. 4 years of visits. 4 years of watching my mother disappear while my sister became a saint online. Closed. I placed the final statement in the Rose notebook. The notebook now sits on my bookshelf. Its pages are full. Some entries are practical. April 2nd. Mom ate half sandwich. Needed sweater. Paid pharmacy. Some are painful. July 9th. Mom did not know me today. Called me nurse. Sang hymn after dinner. Some are funny. December 12th. Mom said, Christmas decorations look like elves lost a bet. Some are only one sentence. Mom slept. I stayed. That may be the truest definition of caregiving I know. She slept. I stayed. Patricia and I are not close in the old way, because the old way was built on me absorbing what she performed. But we are more honest. Sometimes she comes over for coffee. Sometimes we talk about Mom without competing. Sometimes she says, I almost posted something today, and then I thought, no, just feel it. I tell her that is progress. She laughs. A little. She still likes attention. People do not become different species. But she is learning that being seen is not the same as being good. As for the care home footage, I never watched it again. I did not need to. The truth had already moved through the room. But Mrs. Price gave me copies of the visitor summary and billing record for my files. I keep them with Mom's paperwork, not because I want to punish Patricia forever, but because family stories have a way of softening at the edges until the person who did the work becomes, we all helped. No, we did not all help equally. Some came late, some came for photos, some came after being exposed, some paid after being asked with evidence on the table. And some of us were there on ordinary Wednesdays when nobody was watching. The final lesson is not that posting about grief is always wrong. Sometimes people share because they are lonely. Sometimes posts bring support. Sometimes a photo is a real memory. But when public devotion becomes a costume worn over someone else's labor, it is not love. It is theft of witness. My sister told everyone, I abandoned Mom. The care home cameras showed who never came. And when the visitor logs appeared on that conference room screen, when the billing history showed who paid, when the footage showed my sister entering for pictures and leaving before dinner, the story finally stopped belonging to her captions. My mother's care had not been carried alone by Patricia. It had been carried quietly by me. Then, finally, it was carried by the truth. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I know some of you have been the quiet caregiver while someone else collected sympathy, praise, and public credit. If Diane's story reached you, I hope you remember that the work you do when nobody is watching still counts. The receipts count. The visitor logs count. The late-night calls count. The laundry bags, pharmacy runs, invoices, and silent visits count. And if someone ever tries to erase you with a caption, let the record speak. Subscribe to Ultimate Revenge for more stories about quiet women, family betrayal, silent comebacks, and the proof that finally reaches the table. So tell me, if your sister told everyone you abandoned your mother while you were the one paying, visiting, and managing care, would you defend yourself online, or would you let the care home director play the visitor logs and security footage?